Thank you to everyone who took part in the October 2023 Power Query Challenge. As ever, I learned some new stuff and I'm going to share that with you now. Here's the challenge and here's a few solutions. Let's go. Here's the data as it came in. So we've got these client IDs and they're being merged together from two different systems. So system 1 has the different contact IDs for that client, but they've got the same name and the same email. So what we really want to do is create one record for ID 1, but then any duplicates, we want to merge them together with a comma. So looking at the result, ID 1, ID 1 and 2 get merged together. 1 and 2 here get merged together, okay? But then name 1 is the same in both, so that doesn't need merging, obviously. So that's the challenge. Right, let me show you how I started to approach this. And the submissions that came in were much better than my approach. So I love doing this stuff because I learn new things all the time. So if I go into Power Query, and by the way, I always add this here via data, okay, get data, right click on Launch Power Query Editor, and then you can add it to your quick access toolbar, and you can always move it to the first position. And the alternative these days is Alt F12 launches Power Query as well. So here we go, I'm just going to go into my button. And I want to call out a few people who submitted very similar solutions, and a few other people did as well. There's just so many, I can't go through them all, unfortunately. And Brian, Ollie, and Win, great name by the way, you folks really did a good job on this. And I'm going to sort of show how that solution works. Let me show you how I sort of initially tackled this. Okay, so my initial approach, and stay tuned for the recommended way, but this was my thought process, was to do a group by on this. So right click, group by, because it's the duplicate IDs that I want to sort of group together. And you can just call this something like data, and this is the little trick, is you call it all rows, and you click OK. So then that groups, I've got the individual client IDs now, which is a great starting point. And then inside each of these tables, if I bring this up a little bit, inside each one is these records. So if I click on this one, you'll see there's only one record. If I click on this bottom one here, you'll see there's two of these records here. Okay, so that's doubling up. That's the same. So I want to remove those, keep the distinct values. So that's the idea, okay? So I went, right, well, if I can grab this column and give me the distincts and this column and this column. So I actually did this to start with. So add column, custom column, okay? And I'd use the list.distinct function. Remember, never type the dot when you're typing in IntelliSense. So there's list distinct, open the bracket, and from the data column, I actually want to reference with another little square bracket this column to get the distinct values. And this is, I know, as soon as I started doing this, I thought, oh, this isn't great. But, you know, sometimes if it works, it was just a quick fix initially. System 1, and if you spell this wrong, it doesn't work. So contact ID, you know, all right. And if I click on OK, oh, sorry, I've got to put a bracket on the end, bracket, and click OK, I now get this little list, okay? That's just the items from that column. All right, and essentially, I just repeated that for each of these columns, okay? So I had, let me just go and show you, if I go to my manual list step, I did a distinct to the first, a distinct to the second, a distinct, so on and so on and so on. Pretty awful, okay? But it worked, right? So I kept going with that process. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. I kept on with that process. And then once you get to the end of it, you can then expand them. So again, for each column, I had to go expand, extract values, and put a comma between each thing. And it all worked. Okay, so it was a lot of manual steps, A lot of clicks. I'd have to do the distinct of all these columns and extract the values of all these. Bit of a pain. Okay, and also you're hard coding in all those column names, which again you want to try and avoid if you can. So I tried to do it with some neater code. Right, I tried to sort of tidy it up a little bit with some neater code and stuff in here. But again, not great. And then I made it fully dynamic, thinking about it. And this file's available for you to download. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. And I'm not going to explain these because there's a better way. All right, there's a better way. So, I went the long way around this. With Power Query, sometimes you just got to think, there must be a little different way of doing this or simplifying it. Right. So let me show you this method. And this is what Brian, Ollie, Win, and I'm sure a few others have done. And really it's, I kick myself when I see it. It's often the way with Power Query. But to start with, right-click, unpivot other columns. All right, so that's your starting point. So we've got the columns unpivoted. Okay, and then I liked Win's approach. They went in here, highlighted this, and I'm assuming they did it this way. They may have just handwritten the code. I'm not sure. Right-click, okay, remove duplicates. And what you'll notice, before I click that, what you'll notice is, let's say we've got ID 1 here with name and name 1. And then down here, a bit further in row 11, we've got ID 1 with name and name 1, okay? So if I highlight here, watch what happens to row 11. I'll go right-click, remove duplicates. Okay, and because this ID 1, name 1 was there, all those duplicate entries, where the things are the same, which we don't want to double up, they're gone, okay, which is great, perfect. And then how do you then group this? Well, you then do a group by on these two columns. This column is just the headings, okay? So we right-click on here, do a group by, okay? Call this something like combined text. And rather than count rows, it's all rows, and we click OK. And there we've got the items grouped together. Now, if you want to be fancy, like Brian and Ollie and Win did, and when I say fancy, I'm being sarcastic because it's a really good solution, and I think one you should adopt, which I'll show you in a second. But you could, from here, go the slightly long way of doing this. So what I could do is go, the way I approached it earlier, you could go custom column, okay, list distinct. There it is. All right. Combined text, and the column was called values, or value actually, I think it was called. It'll soon tell me if I remembered wrong. There we go. So what I'm doing is saying from this column called value, grab the distinct items. So there we go. And actually, you don't even really need to do the distinct ones because already the duplicates have been removed. So in theory, you could just go back in here and just get rid of that list distinct. Okay. You could just do that. And this will just give you the uniques, or the duplicates. So, and from here, you expand this out. You say extract values. So there's a whole bunch of extra steps here. Okay, you put the comma, click OK. All right, remove this. And now we pivot the data back. So we got this column. We go transform, pivot columns. The values, so it says use the names from the attribute to create new columns. So these were their column headers originally, so that's great. But I want to use the custom, and I don't want to aggregate. Okay, I just want to display these values. Okay, and now we're done. Now, a nice little trick, back up in here, is if we go back to the grouped rows stage, we can save doing all these extra steps. All right. So up here, after we did the group rows, it says each, and then this whole chunk of stuff. So I'm just going to get rid of that chunk of stuff there. So for each, and I can do a text combine, open the bracket, It was called value, and then put a comma in there. And I think that should work. All right, and then I don't need right click, delete until end. That's the solution. So take a look at this file. The link is in the description below. Thanks to Brian and Ollie and Win and everybody else that took part. There's no good or bad solution. I just really like this one. So thanks for taking part. Hope you find it useful. Let me know in the comments what you think. Have I missed something? Is there some better way? But this is a pretty neat solution. All right, catch you later.